Why, hello everyone. It is your Dark Lord of the Seas, Darth Voidus here. And I've seen this kind of rolling around, especially, and I've had the idea. Since I've watched the Fallout series, and I am a Fallout fan, but I don't know everything. So here's what we are going to do. In the spirit of Fallout, we're going to react to all of the vaults explained, all of their experiments in Fallout. Now this is going to be a two-parter, so it doesn't get too blocky. But yes, here we go, boys and girls.
By the year 2054, the United States government was faced with the reality that atomic warfare was inevitable. Oil was becoming increasingly rare. The United Nations had collapsed.
Oil? Makes sense. Wait, is that the right thing? Which building is that?
2 years prior, and a nuclear exchange had recently erupted in the Middle East, making it the first time atomic weapons were used on a civilian population.
Of course it was the Middle East.
This would lead to a secretive group comprised of high-ranking government officials known as the Enclave to devise a plan to preserve themselves.
The Enclave.
And thus, Project Safe House was born. Billions of dollars would be commissioned to a company known as Vault
13, the famous vault.
Tech to construct 122 underground nuclear shelters known as vaults in order to supposedly shelter the United States population from impending doom. However, its true purpose was to conduct a series of inhumane experiments on the population of each vault in order to gather enough data for the Enclave to colonize another planet. When the bombs dropped on October 23rd...
Hold on. So, we're gonna experiment on these thousands of people so we can colonize another planet and experiment. What the Alright, this is already twisted.
2077, in what is known as the Great War, the vaults were sealed, thus beginning 122 stories which the Fallout series has been uncovering since its inception. While not every vault has been explored over the course of this franchise, there are still quite a few that have been given rich and interesting stories for us to discover in our journeys throughout the wasteland. So without further ado, here is every vault in the Fallout canon. Before this video starts, here are some terms you may need to know to better understand the lore behind these vaults. If you already know these terms, then skip ahead to this timestamp. FEV, or the Forced Evolution.
I know enough about Fallout that I can skip that stuff. But you know what? No, we'll stick it for you.
Evolutionary virus was an experiment engineered before the Great War by the US government. It was designed to accelerate evolution in human subjects in order to make them more effective soldiers, but instead, it caused devastating mutations to those exposed to it, giving rise to creatures like super mutants and other mutated horrors like centaurs or nightkin. In the Fallout universe, chems refer to drugs. They're everywhere in the post-war world, ranging from old medical pills to homemade substances that often lead to addiction. Chems such as Mentats, Buffout, Med-X, and Jet are just some of the substances found throughout the wasteland. Synths, short for synthetic humanoids, is a common term used to refer to the robotic beings created by the mysterious faction known as the Institute. While Generation 1 and 2 synths are entirely mechanical by design, utilizing simplistic artificial intelligence, Generation 3 synths are nearly indistinguishable from humans, right down to their DNA. Generation 3 synths in particular are frequently sent to abduct and replace residents of the Commonwealth in order for the Institute to spy on the residents of the wasteland. The GECK, or Garden of Eden Creation Kit, is a device designed to restore a selected area destroyed by nuclear fallout into a habitable environment, capable of growing food and purifying water. Each vault was issued 2 GECKs, so that when the population left the vaults, they could use it to create a sustainable society in the wasteland. Ghouls, rat roaches, mirelords, rat scorpions, glowing ones, deathclaws, and the Scorched are some of the creatures I'll be mentioning in this video.
Like, I know for Shady Sands, that's how they made that. The Vault City opened up and then they used the GECK to create Shady Sands, which is now the capital of the NCR. But, for all the vaults that went to shit and all that, why didn't they just grab the GECKs out of there? Like, I think that the whole thing in like Fallout 3 is that you grab one GECK. Or is that Fallout 2? I can't remember. But Yeah, why don't they just do that? Like, there's 2 to every vault. Like, you could probably colonize a good bit of America back with those.
All of whom have been transformed and mutated by radiation into their current form. The Brotherhood of Steel, the Boomers, the Institute, the Powder Gangers, the Enclave, the Gunners, and the NCR are some of the factions that I mentioned throughout the video without clarification as to who they are. So here are their descriptions that you can come back to if I mention them throughout this video. And now, let's begin.
Alright, we're in for it.
This is a World of Warcraft hardcore randomizer. All your abilities and talents are random, and you only get 1 life. Let's see how...
The annoyance of an ad.
Located in the South Vegas ruins, Vault 3 is known as a control vault, which meant that the inhabitants were not subjected to any experiments during their time in the vault. Thus, the inhabitants remained sealed for over a century after the bombs dropped, until a water leak forced the inhabitants to open up the vault so that they could trade with the people of the wasteland in order to survive. All was well for a few weeks until the vault caught the attention of a group of raiders known as the Fiends, who subsequently massacred the vault's residents and claimed the vault for themselves. In Fallout New Vegas, if you head to Vault 3, you will find it fully inhabited by the Fiends, led by their chief, a raider named Motor Runner. Since they took over the vault, the Fiends grew stronger and more vicious, and are considered a deadly threat by the New California Republic and the people of the Mojave. Vault 4 and Vault 33 both feature in the Fallout TV series. And because it hasn't come out yet at the time of recording, we know very little about them or their experiment, other than the fact that Vault 33 is located in Santa Monica, California, and is inhabited by a vault dweller named...
Oh yeah, Vault 4 is where they end up around Shooty Sands, and the ones are crazy.
Lucy and her father, Overseer Hank. However, if you are watching this after the TV show has come out, then perhaps I'll make a video covering the lore of these vaults, and if that's the case, it will be plugged here. Located in northwestern Nevada, Vault 8 was originally designed as a control vault slated to open after a decade to repopulate the surface. However, due to a mistake made by the US government, Vault 8 received a surplus of water ships intended for Vault 13. The dwellers lived peacefully underground until 2091, when the Enclave's all-clear signal prompted the vault to open. Upon reaching the surface, the residents would use their Garden of Eden creation kit to establish a city powered by nuclear energy supplied by the vault's reactor. This would lead to the creation of Vault City, known for its advanced medical technology such as autodocs capable of performing sophisticated surgeries without the assistance of humans. By 2241, the vault itself was used primarily as storage as well as a medical center for the citizens of Vault City. Vault 11, located in the Mojave Desert, conducted a social experiment where inhabitants were told that they had to sacrifice one vault dweller annually, or else they all would perish. When the vault door was sealed, and the first inhabitants learned about their situation, they were horrified and enraged with the vault's overseer for not telling them before they were trapped inside, thus turning him into Vault 11's very first sacrifice. This tradition of sacrificing the overseer would continue as time went on, and each year, the vault would hold an election to determine who would be elected as overseer, and consequently killed. This divided the vault into different political parties known as the Coalition of Vault 11 voting blocks. Each year they would create voting guides for the vault's residents meant as an impartial source of information for who they should vote for. As time went on, these guides eventually would become a source of voting propaganda as the vault began to experience a power struggle among the blocks. As the coalition gained influence over the years, they became more and more corrupt, and one year a woman named...
So it just gets more and more fucked up. Like, oh... Yeah, I think it's about to go on to the story here, but... I like the story.
Catherine Stone was sexually coerced by a leader of the Justice Bloc so that they would not sacrifice her husband, Nathan. Tragically, Nathan was voted as a sacrifice regardless, leading to Catherine murdering the other members of the Justice Bloc one by one in a fit of rage. Her rampage consequently resulted in her being voted as the sacrifice for the next year, and thus making her the new overseer. In her first act as overseer, she banned the election in favor of a system where the annual sacrifice would be chosen randomly by the vault's computer. The remaining members of...
She really did just go, fuck this random bullshit, go. Not bad though, because it destroyed the power that all the coalitions would have had.
The Justice Bloc, fearful of losing their power, staged an armed coup. which resulted in the massacre of most of the vault's residents, leaving only 5 dwellers alive. These 5, horrified at the events that had taken place, mutually decided to end the cycle of killing and refused to sacrifice any more people. They were then presented with an automated message congratulating them for breaking the cycle and not murdering anyone, revealing the whole experiment was a ruse. The computer then unlocked the vault's main entrance, allowing the dwellers to leave as they pleased. Shocked and disgusted with what they had done, 4 of the 5 dwellers decided to end their own lives out of guilt for their actions. The remaining survivor, presumably, left the vault, never to be seen again. By 2281, the vault remains empty, only inhabited by its robot personnel, as well as terminal entries and holotapes detailing the horrible events that had taken place inside. Vault 12, located in Bakersfield, California, was intended as a medical experiment studying the effects of gradual radiation exposure, in which the vault door was designed to not seal correctly when the bombs dropped. This resulted in the vault's population turning into ghouls. In the year 2083, the survivors would leave the vault and turn the surrounding area into the city of Necropolis. By the time of Fallout 1, the vault is still inhabited by a number of glowing ones who act as guards for the vault's water chip if you attempt to steal it. Vault 13, located in the mountains of Southern California, was intended to keep its residents isolated from the outside world until one day, a water chip malfunction led to the Overseer to send a handful of vault residents out into the wasteland to search for a replacement. The first dweller, a man named Ed, barely
They actually made a reference to that in the new Fallout show, saying that the water chip is broken, and it's pretty damn hefty.
made it out of the vault before being killed by rats. The second dweller, a man named Talius, was captured by Nightkin and turned into an FEV mutant, and now resides in the Boneyard as a member of the Followers of the Apocalypse. The third, your player character in Fallout 1, would succeed in replacing Vault 13's water chip in the year 2161 after a long and harrowing journey throughout the wasteland. Despite fulfilling his task, as well as saving the vault from the Master's army of super mutants, the Vault Dweller was banished by the Overseer, as he felt that his adventures in the wasteland would lead the Vault's population to abandon their home. This would lead to the Vault Dweller leaving Vault 13 and founding the settlement of Arroyo. After the residents of Vault 13 learned of the Overseer's decision, they sentenced him to death, allowing those who wished to leave the vault to do so. The remaining dwellers would live peacefully in the vault until 2241, when they were captured or killed by the Enclave, who left behind a pack of intelligent Deathclaws to guard the vault. The vault was then found by the Vault Dweller's grandson, the Chosen One, who was there on a mission to retrieve the vault's Gek in order to save the previously mentioned village of Arroyo. Once he retrieves the Gek, Frank Horrigan and a squad of Enclave soldiers
the meme man, Frank Horrigan, Secret Service. Your free ride is over. You time to die. Yeah, this man, 12-foot tall super mutant with power armor built not for him, but around him. He's a literal walking tank that can rip a Deathclaw with his bare hands in half.
Exterminate the Deathclaws, leaving Vault 13 an empty hole in the ground.
And
Vault 15, located in Southern California, was a social experiment in which a large population from diverse ethnic and religious backgrounds were forced to live together. This would cause a schism among the dwellers, which would lead to them abandoning the vault, separating into 3 raider groups: the Khans, the Jackals, and the Vipers. The remaining inhabitants who opted to not become raiders fled west and established the settlement of Shady Sands. By 2161, the vault was abandoned and only inhabited by a family of rad scorpions. As the years went on, Vault 15 remained abandoned due to disputes over excavation rights. Various factions, including the New California Republic, Raiders, and Scavengers, all clashed over control. In the early 2240s, the NCR sought to reclaim the vault's computer parts, but were stopped by a group of squatters living on the surface of the vault. These squatters were secretly harboring a group of raiders known as the New Khans, who they believed were restoring the vault. However, the truth was that the New Khans were just using the squatters as a smokescreen to hide from the NCR. The situation was resolved after Tandy, the president of the NCR, hired the Chosen One to broker a deal between the NCR and the squatters. In exchange for retrieving the computer parts, the squatters agreed to join the NCR, receiving education and essential supplies, while Vault 15 became the property of the NCR. Vault 17 is a vault that we do not know much about. However, what we do know is that its inhabitants were kids kidnapped and transformed into supermutants by the Master.
Oh,
Among those
yeah.
inhabitants lived a 75-year-old grandma named Lily Bowen.
Oh,
After being
yeah.
exposed to the Force evolutionary
The
virus by the
schizophrenic,
Master's
yeah,
army, Lily was
the
turned into a
schizophrenic
Nightkin
Nightkin.
and can be found in Jacobstown in Fallout New Vegas, where she can be recruited as a companion. Vault 19, located in the Mojave.
Now, for those of you who don't know what she sounds like, this is literally what this supermutant sounds like. Little Jimmy. Oh, I must find little Jimmy. Actually, it's more gutturally, and it's even more somehow messed up.
Mojave Desert was intended as a social experiment studying the effects of factionalism and how it induced paranoia and mistrust among its residents. During this experiment,
Are
residents
you
were
a
divided
communist?
into blue and red sectors and subjected to a series of manipulation tactics to turn the two sections against each other. Journal entries found inside the vault indicate
It's
high
red
levels
versus
of
blue.
paranoia, such as blaming the other factions for the vault's malfunctions, as well as reports of feeling unusual drafts from the air vents, seeing blinking patterns in the lights that mimicked code, as well as a child reporting hearing high-pitched noises coming from his vault terminal, which was perhaps a form of subliminal messaging. Little did they know that this was all being orchestrated by the overseers, as well as the vault doctors, who may have been drugging the residents.
So the time this man, the overseer, is just strategically gaslighting him. God damn it.
Leading some to experience fits of aggression and psychosis. By the time of Fallout New Vegas, the vault had been taken over by powder gangers after they found the place abandoned, leaving the fate of the vault's residents unknown. Vault 21, located on the New Vegas Strip, housed an experiment which focused on the effects of excessive gambling. When the bombs dropped, 200 years would pass, and the vault's residents would develop a stable community which solved its problems through gambling. Eventually, in the year 2274,
Oh man, it's so fun cleaning those casinos. When you got high luck, you don't need skill. You just gotta know when to bloody goddamn stop the cards. 16, kinda safe. 17, I'm sorry, but 17 is dead man's hand when it comes to blackjack. It is dead man's hand. You just gotta hope he goes off.
Robert House, the ruler of the New Vegas
You got a
Strip,
10 card,
proposed a game
yes.
of blackjack,
Double
where
down.
if he won, he would become the owner of the vault. Some of the vault's residents were skeptical and favored isolationism. However, others were in favor of opening the vault up. As a result, Mr. House tasked the residents in favor of opening up the vault to challenge those who disagreed to a game of blackjack in order to decide what to do. Eventually, the dwellers in favor of opening up won the game, handing over the ownership of Vault 21 to Mr. House. Afterwards, Mr. House unexpectedly attempted to fill the vault with concrete in order to force the residents to move out of Vegas. However, one of the dwellers, Sarah, was able to convince him to turn the vault into a hotel. Convinced of its profitability, Mr. House transformed the vault into a hotel, and by 2281, the vault was still open for business, offering residents
the
of New
house
Vegas
always
room and board
wins.
as long as they had the caps. Vault 22, located in the Mojave Desert, was in
This vault is incredibly messed up. What happens in the vault, and then what happens after they leave. Because I'm only after finishing the Honest Hearts DLC, and oh, these vault dwellers, they deserve exactly what they get.
intended as a research facility which tested genetically modified crops that were developed at Big Mountain, a think tank known for its unorthodox experiments. After the bombs dropped and the scientists began experimenting on the crops, they accidentally released an outbreak of a modified fungal infection which would lead to the vault being overrun with vegetation. The vault's residents all would eventually succumb to the
These
infection,
guys,
as the fungus they were
they used to take
experimenting
care
on
of
would
what I
colonize
held
their
down the
bodies and use
flamethrower.
them as hosts,
Hans,
turning them into
that's
horrifying
me,
creatures
the
known as
Flamen
spore
Werfer.
carriers. Located somewhere on the west coast of the United States, Vault 29 was intended to house a population of rich children under the age of 15. The vault would be controlled by a Zax AI supercomputer which would be programmed to raise the children with the aid of robotic helpers. Not much is known about the fate of Vault 29, other than the fact that Harold, a recurring character in the Fallout series, is said to have originated from there. Vault 34, located in the Mojave Desert, hosted an experiment granting its inhabitants unrestricted access to an armory full of weapons and explosives. This would cause a very gun-centric culture within the vault, and seeing the potential for disaster, the Overseer would lock up the vault's
Oh,
armory.
yeah, they become
Because of
goons.
this, the residents protested, as they felt that they had the right to their weapons, and thus, the population was divided into
They are
two
truly
groups. The first
America.
group escaped the vault and head north, where they would discover the Nellis Air Force Base
These
and
guys are
eventually
awesome.
become
They
the
get
Boomers.
they
The
restore
remaining
a
dwellers would be
goddamn
trapped
bomb with
inside
your
by
help
the
in the
Overseer,
game.
leading to a riot that damaged the vault's reactor. This would end up filling the vault with radiation, turning its remaining residents into feral ghouls. As of 2281, Vault 34 is nothing more than a ghoul-infested, irradiated hole in the ground stocked with all the weaponry that one could need. Not much is known about Vault 43, as it was featured only in the Fallout comic titled One Man and a Crate of Puppets.
Wait, what?
All that is known about the vault is
What?
that its inhabitants consisted of 20 men, 10 women, and a panther. Vault 51, located in the forests of Appalachia, conducted an experiment.
What? 20 men, 10 women, and a panther, and a crate of puppets. Okay, what am I complaining about? It's Fallout.
In which a Zax 1.3C supercomputer would test the vault's residents in order to determine who is best fit for the role of Overseer. The computer was primarily taught by a man named Sergeant Robert Baker, who would advise the computer on what made the best leader. As time went on, Baker attempted 2 separate times to hold an election. But when no one could decide on a leader, the computer deemed elections pointless and would forego this method of selecting the Overseer.
What?
Baker would then commune with the AI, telling it that a leader was someone who stepped up in times of crises. The AI would misinterpret this message and begin to produce a series of crises for the dwellers in order to see who.
No. So it's just like, so if there's okay, so leaders are people who step up to solve problems. Ergo, make problems. To be honest, that is such like a robot thing to do. Like, just go with the most logical and simple
Who was
way
most
to do
fit
it.
to lead? These crises included, but are not limited to, changing the rules of a talent show halfway through to make it so that the losers would be forced to move out of their bedrooms and into bunk beds, making the dwellers compete in rigged casino games, engineering a food shortage, convincing the dwellers that houseflies were infesting the vault, blaring the vault alarms while the residents were sleeping, switching their coffee with decaf, and manipulating the dwellers into cheating on their significant others.
Okay,
These
that's
events
messed up.
ultimately manipulated the remaining inhabitants to turn against each other, leading to multiple deaths. One day, after the body of a dweller named Helen was found, the vault residents began to frenzy. This led to the dwellers massacring each other, leaving only one survivor alive, a man named Reuben Gill. Since he was the only dweller left, he was named Overseer, and would stay isolated with the Zax AI for years. This would change when Reuben found out about the opening of Vault 76. Seeking a way to escape, Reuben would hack into the vault's inventory system and place himself inside a shipping crate, allowing him to leave undetected when the crate was removed from the vault. His plan was to find someone from Vault 76 to help him defeat the Zax AI, and he was actually successful in making contact with one of the dwellers, but he ultimately died before he could return to Vault 51. Currently, the vault is abandoned, and its only inhabitants are some scorched who wandered inside. Located in a cave underneath a shack southwest of
Hi, now that one, Fallout 76, I did start playing a little bit, but because I don't have Xbox Game Pass, I was kicked out after the free week ended that Bethesda was doing, which I very much was annoyed at. But, yeah, that's been the first half of our reaction to every vault in the Fallout series explained, briefly. We're not going to in-depth, we're not staying here for hours. So, yeah, don't forget, I hope you like this video. Don't forget to comment and like down below, and to watch the original video watch the original video of the creator. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. And remember, the dark side is with you.